Welcome back to Made in Japan. Today we're tackling something that's been bothering me for way too long. My boring, lifeless background. Yeah, it's not too great for a channel all about making cool stuff, right? You may have seen it change throughout my videos, from a boring white background to a case of anime figures. And it just never felt right for my channel. So that is why I built this. This insanely awesome LED backdrop. It looks amazing. It's cheap and is perfect for YouTube and or streaming. So today, I'll show you how I took some LEDs, plastic board, cloth, and bits of plastic and made this awesome backdrop. So you can look cool in your next video, stream, or just Zoom call. How did I do it? What did it cost? And can you make one too? Let's find out. A few weeks ago, I saw this video from NerdForge where she overhauls her room. And I just thought, I have to have this. I work out of and sometimes sleep in this tiny 2.5 by 2 meter room. It's where I make my videos, design and build my projects, play video games, and store my clothes and collections. It's way too small, but it's what's available. So I started planning my room remodel. And why not record it and make some cool videos out of it? If you're interested in seeing the rest of my room transformation, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for updates on future videos. Once I decided that I wanted to build a proper background, I dove into the research. I checked out what other creators are using, and I loved the hexagon wall designs. Different shades of gray at different heights. But my family wasn't a fan, so I went with something a little different. This polygon style backdrop. Over the years, I've taken a few art classes, and they tend to say the best art uses lines and angles to draw the viewer's attention towards the middle. Like this. I took a screenshot from one of my past videos and started designing over the top. If I use lightweight materials, it should be renter friendly and easy to move in the future. So here is my amazing design. Okay, it looks pretty basic and plain, but I can imagine it. Just like this. Using a measuring tape, I get general measurements for the area where the backdrop will need to cover, about 220 by 130 centimeters. I first attempted to get measurements for each of the panels in Photoshop, but I felt it was a little too inaccurate. So let's use the image as a canvas and draw over it in Fusion 360. And I can now grab the measurements for each panel's sides, but not angles. The cheapest way I can think to make this is by creating a frame and then stretching some cloth over it. So I bought a few strips of plastic L-channel. I could tell pretty quickly that there were some problems with this idea, but I was determined to make it work. I thought it would be easiest and perhaps stronger if I cut the outside of the L channel, but this ended up changing the panel's size, adding an extra 15 millimeters in each direction, and this frame doesn't keep the angles at all. And then the corners are missing. If I do go to stretch the cloth over it, I won't get my nice crisp angles that I'd like to see. So I attempted to 3D print some corners that would keep the angle and strengthen the frame. But it's still not strong enough. Perhaps this L channel wasn't a good choice after all. And I have a feeling that the cloth will probably bunch up and get wavy where it's not supported. Let's use a little bit more money and use a board for strength and structure. With the boards purchased, I can start cutting right away. No, not quite. The boards I'm using are these. 90 by 182 plastic corrugated board. I want these panels to be in a single piece if possible. That way it should be a little stronger. And as a frugal person, I wanted to use the fewest boards possible. So we need to fit as many of these panels into 1 or 2 boards, like a puzzle. I first try using Fusion, but it quickly gets frustrating. I can't tell if the pieces are passing through each other. Moving them is clunky and tedious, and it just takes too long. So I decided to 3D print it. Much better. After a few minutes, I decided that the best orientation is like this. Two parts don't quite fit, but it should be okay as they're not in the middle of the board and I can just fill in these corners with extra scraps. With this, I'm confident that I can make 9 lightweight panels out of the corrugated plastic board. I'll stretch the cloth over them, gluing it on the back side. The L channel will hold the panels off the wall, creating a mounting place, and I can attach the LEDs to the L channel. Now it's time to cut. Here's what I have to make it happen. WS2812B individually addressable LED strips. They're RGB and controllable from AliExpress. 2 of these plastic corrugated boards that I'll then cover in this cloth for texture and color. I bought a bunch of these 15mm L-channel sticks to rise the panel off the wall and hide the LEDs. I'll of course need a glue gun to attach it all, box cutter and scissors to cut stuff, a soldering iron and all the accessories to solder the LEDs together, and of course a power source, which is a standard 5-volt USB adapter. Eventually, I realized I needed a way to attach these boards to the wall, so I 3D printed these thumbtacks. Let's put it all together. I start by cutting each of the panels out of the boards, as this is the base to attach everything to. Remember kids, measure once and cut twice. Or wait, measure twice and cut once. Here's where I realized I should have got angles for some of these panels, and probably a tool that would help me transfer that angle. It almost lines up though. A few adjustments, and well, I guess it'll have to do. Some of my cuts aren't perfectly straight, so I'll cover the inside edges of the board with tape to smooth out the jagged bits. Now that all the boards are cut, let's add the cloth. I'm worried that these creases might not come out naturally, so I'll iron the cloth first, just to make sure. I also need to make sure the cloth goes on the right side of the board, so I mark the front of each board so that it will get covered by the cloth. Puzzle time again! I try and fit as many panels into the 2 pieces of cloth that I have. I mark the cloth, cut it, and glue it. Pretty easy. Luckily, this process went pretty smoothly, until old problems pop up again. But after a small alteration, it should be okay. The L channel was pretty easy to install. It is invisible, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Sticking LED strips onto the L channel was a little bit more difficult. The first issue I had with these lights is that they only accept input from one side, but that's not too difficult to fix. Just swap it around and solder the right connection on. These are individually addressable LEDs, which means a controller sends a signal to each LED directly and lights it up in whatever color or pattern it needs to. So the second issue I ran into was the default effects on these controllers were only programmed for 300 LEDs. That means for now, we'll have to use 3 controllers to control all of the LEDs for this backdrop. I'll eventually switch to a Raspberry Pi and custom lighting effects, but we'll tackle that in a different video. The third issue is due to my inexperience. Luckily, these strips came with a few extra connectors that were made for this kind of use. The ones that I crimped, however, had a few issues. After several recrimps, it finally starts to work properly. It's looking pretty great. And now, the final step, time to mount it. I actually hadn't put too much thought into this. The L channel should make it easy to attach. But how? I could put brackets on the wall, but that would require mapping out where each panel goes and the angle it needs to be oriented. That sounds pretty difficult. So I decided thumbtacks. Normal thumbtacks might not be big enough, so I designed and 3D printed my own. Each of these pieces will hold a small nail, probably from some old IKEA project. It gets hot glued to the panel, and then I just have to line up the panel and press it into the wall. Adjusting the panel should be very easy and only leave small pinpricks in the wall. And it's up. Pretty cool, right? For this project, I purchased 4 LED strips, 2 plastic boards, 48 centimeters of cloth, and 10 sticks of 2-meter long L channel, 15 by 15 millimeters. I already had from previous project the about 1 meter of wire needed, 15 connectors, lots and lots of glue sticks, some heat shrink tubing, and of course all the tools needed to make everything. It turns out I bought a little too much of the L channel, and a whole extra pack of LEDs that I didn't need. So here's the breakdown on the cost of everything. Bringing the total of this project to under 15,000 yen, or less than $100 US. Not too bad. It's a little more expensive than I wanted, but I really can't argue with these results, and I don't know how I could make it much cheaper. Any pre-made solution is much more expensive. And this homemade solution fits my channel way better anyway, so win-win. This turned out way better than I expected. It's bright, colorful, and completely changes the vibe of my videos. And the best part is, it's just the beginning. I'll be programming custom lighting effects and upgrading the controller with a Raspberry Pi, along with upgrading the rest of my office in a future video. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you like this project, perhaps you'd like my last video on repurposing a CPU into a cool Ridge-like wallet. Thanks for watching. Bye.